One of the most important off seasons in modern Notre Dame football history is officially underway. With staff movement, coaching rumors, and portal decisions already flying, there is no time to rest, and we're covering it all on today's mailbag.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily home for Notre Dame football. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network, all thanks to your support. I'm your host, Tyler Wojak. I'm a Notre Dame alum, producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish since 2020. It is Friday, December 12th. So happy Friday, everybody, and congratulations on getting through another brutal week as a Notre Dame football fan. Last week wasn't particularly great either, but this week was far worse after what happened on Sunday, although it could be worse. At least we're not Michigan, right? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow the show on your preferred podcast platform so that way you never miss an episode. All right, it is the first Friday mailbag of the offseason. Not something I wanted to say at this point in time, but it is what it is. And we're coming in hot with plenty of big topics to discuss, like what's the latest on Marcus Freeman's contract extension and his staff, how the CFP could change after this disaster, and what moves Notre Dame could make if they decide they've had enough with the ACC. Plus, we'll close with some portal surprises, quarterback plans, and a final word on the Eli Raridan anytime touchdown bet. Let's go. Our first one comes from at Marks the Idol of the Idol 5591. Any word on when we will hear directly from Marcus Freeman? And more specifically, is he going to be signing a contract extension with the Irish? I received a bunch of versions of this question, but I thought Marks the Idol of the Idol phrased it best. So let's get into it because there is a lot here. As of now, Marcus Freeman does not have a press conference scheduled. That does not mean we're not going to hear from him. He could appear on television or do another media hit whenever he wants. But at this point, it is entirely up to him. As for the contract extension, here's what Athletic Director Pete Bavacqua said during his press conference on Monday. Quote, I view his contract, although a multi-year contract, as a living, breathing document that we will revise every year as needed to be sure he's where he deserves to be. He knows he has that commitment from me and, more importantly, from the university, end quote. Pete stopped short of saying he would crawl across 100 yards of broken glass to keep Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, but if he had said that, I would believe him because Notre Dame is doing everything they possibly can to keep Marcus Freeman for as long as they can, and it is my understanding that they are in a great place in negotiations. Since he signed a 6-year contract extension last year, I think they are working on a significant raise, then adding several more years to the deal, and it's likely going to include additional compensation for his staff too, which is extremely important and usually a part of these negotiations. But when Pete Sampson from The Athletic came on the show Wednesday, he could not have been more emphatic about Marcus Freeman's desire to coach at Notre Dame next year. I was surprised and borderline shocked by the level of confidence in his voice. And if you have not heard that episode, go back and check it out once you're done here. It is worth your time. We covered a lot, and Pete was really insightful. But hearing Pete speak that confidently made me feel a lot better because, look, it's not fun seeing Marcus's name pop up in every coaching rumor on or any TV segment practically. But that is simply the reality. When you have a coach that literally everyone else wants, you have to deal with the outside noise and the attempts to poach him. So hearing someone like Pete, who is very plugged in, speak with that level of certainty about Marcus returning next year is encouraging. I have heard from other sources that they are in a great spot as well with the negotiations, and I think we should get an announcement in the coming weeks. Once that happens, I think fans will be able to breathe a little bit easier. But long term, I do believe that Marcus will eventually leave for the NFL. It is my belief that his name keeps popping up in these all these reports because I think he is interested in taking on that challenge at some point. Remember, Marcus was drafted by the Bears back in 2009, but he never got to play in the NFL after he was diagnosed with an enlarged heart. And playing in the NFL is a lifelong dream for so many kids. I'm sure it was the same for Marcus Freeman, and his opportunity was taken away. So I completely understand why the idea of coaching the league would be appealing to him. And Marcus is such an aspirational guy. It's part of what makes him a great coach. And people like that want to test themselves at the highest level. And in football, that's the NFL. I also think a part of why his name keeps coming up is because it makes sense for him to at least explore these opportunities just so he can understand what he needs to improve so he's more prepared for that job down the line. That does not mean he is ready to take that on now. His name keeps coming up for the Giants job. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen that by now, but there are also plenty of more credible reports that the Giants prefer someone with NFL experience and ideally an offensive background because they have a rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart that they're basically building their entire franchise around. Marcus Freeman does not fit that profile. He has no NFL experience and he's a defensive coach. On top of that, Marcus is 39 years old. In a damn near perfect situation at Notre Dame, the school is willing to give him anything he needs to succeed, and he knows that. He believes it. So he's not going to just leave Notre Dame for any job. Like, I don't think you have to worry about him coaching the Titans or the Panthers or something like that. He is focused on giving everything he possibly has to win a national championship at Notre Dame, and if he does that, then he's probably going to look to move on. And if he goes to the NFL after delivering the program's first national title in nearly 40 years, I think everyone is going to be able to live with that. I fully expect him to be the head coach of Notre Dame in 2026 and probably 2027 as well. But beyond that, it is impossible to say. That is way too far down the line to make any firm predictions. But I also expect we're going to get an announcement about that extension, raise, whatever you want to call it here, before the start of 2026. All right, that was a long one. Let's get to our next question here. This one comes from @Colton_Fisher2. Any prediction on which staff members might look to take interviews at other schools? Well, Notre Dame linebacker coach Max Bullough just left this week to become the co-defensive coordinator at his alma mater, Michigan State. That news broke on Wednesday. And according to John Bryce from Football Scoop, Michigan State approached Bullough more than a week ago, and he actually initially turned them down. But then they came back with more money and the co-DC title, much more aggressive pitch this time around. And I think they offered him a clear path to eventually take over as the full-time defensive coordinator once Joe Rossi, who has been coaching for a long time and is widely respected, like once he leaves, Bullough is going to take over. I saw some fans that were surprised by this move. I was not. Bullough is a terrific young coach. He's already turned down plenty of suitors, and I think the chance for him to return to the school he played for from 2010 through 2013 and position himself as the next defensive coordinator was probably too appealing to pass up. He's not going to be the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame anytime soon. And let's be honest, this is the same guy who has a Spartan pride tattoo on his bicep. So that tells you all you need to know about how much he loves that program. Unfortunately for him, he's going to have to face Notre Dame next year, and Notre Dame can just respond by hanging 50 on that Spartan defense. But the Irish are going to have no trouble finding a quality replacement, even though I love Bullough. There are plenty of candidates with Notre Dame ties, including Mo Crum, Tyler Stockton, Nick Lazinski at Vanderbilt, Greer Martini, but not Manti Te'o. I had about 20 people ask me if Manti Te'o was going to replace Max Bullough. Guys, Manti Te'o has no coaching experience at all. Right? And just because he's a great player does not mean he's going to be a great coach. People mix that up all the time. I think people just get fascinated by the idea of a former great player rejoining the program and becoming a head coach. Well, there are plenty of instances where that does not turn out well. Autry Denson was a pretty good running back coach at Notre Dame, but he was not a good recruiter, and then Notre Dame eventually just had to let him go. And Autry Denson was a fantastic running back when he was with Notre Dame. Manti Te'o has a bigger profile, but he's not going to be the linebackers coach at Notre Dame anytime soon. He should probably have at least one coaching job before we even consider him for that position. But anyway, I'm sort of getting off topic here. As for the rest of the staff, I think both coordinators, Mike Denbrock and Chris Ash, are very comfortable where they're at. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if every single position coach gets interest from other schools or the NFL this offseason, and that should not spark panic. It is not meant to be alarmist. It means you have a really strong staff that other people want. Are they all leaving? No, but last year is a good reminder. Notre Dame lost a really good running backs coach in Dylan McCullough to the NFL, and then they replaced him with another really good running backs coach in Jaywan Sider. He's been excellent so far with the Irish. They lost defensive coordinator Al Golden to the NFL, and then they replaced him with Chris Ash, which is a pretty, controversial hire is probably too strong of a word, but certainly a peculiar hire, and Chris Ash struggled mightily out of the gate, but then he finished the season strong. Notre Dame finished 13th in scoring defense this season, and I think they're going to be in the top 5 next season with so much returning talent and a second year in Chris Ash's system. Staff turnover happens every single year, so do not freak out when it does. Mike Mickens is going to draw a lot of attention, like he always does. Next year would be his 6th season at Notre Dame, which is practically a lifetime for an assistant coach, let alone a position coach. He already makes 7 figures, though, and he has the best secondary in college football returning, so I don't expect Mickens to leave unless he gets offered a defensive coordinator job at a big program. It could happen, and if it happens, it's going to be tough to keep him. Al Washington has been around for a long time. He could get some attention. So could Gino Guidugli. Both of those guys were part of Marcus Freeman's original staff at Notre Dame. Joe Rudolph had chances to leave last year, so he's another name to monitor. I don't know what the interest level is in Mike Brown, but no matter what happens, Marcus Freeman has shown he can evaluate coaching talent and make strong hires. Coaches want to work for him, and that is why Notre Dame has one of the best staffs in the country and will continue to have one of the best staffs in the future. All right, Drew Brennan, 77, asks, what kind of changes do you think we will start to see coming as it relates to the makeup of the College Football Playoff Committee? At a minimum, there are way too many conference agendas within the group, but is that even something they're willing to change moving forward? So the committee is going to have new members because you can only serve for a limited term. I believe it's just 2 years at a time, but I don't think the overall structure is going to change much. It's always going to be a mix of former coaches or players. They had a few more coaches this year, and they really valued the eye test, but you're always going to have power conference athletic directors or administrators and probably a few legacy media members as well. And when you have people with those backgrounds in the room, they are going to bring their own biases and connections. They are human. This is not a grand jury, and it is not designed to function like one. Conference bias has always been a part of the sport. Every fan base has it, and the people making the decisions are no different. They are required to recuse themselves if it pertains to their team or if it's someone that they have very strong connections with, but still, they're human. For example, some members are very pro-SEC, and I would bet that others cannot stand the SEC. Neither viewpoint is better in terms of the College Football Playoff Committee. There are just different perspectives shaped by experience, and I don't expect to see any changes from that standpoint, although I do expect to see real changes to conference tiebreakers and possibly a universal tiebreaker system to avoid what happened this past year. I think everyone would support that, and if it had been in place this season, Notre Dame would be in the playoff because I think most conferences are going to resort to the highest rated team in the college football playoff would then get the berth in the conference championship if there ends up being these big tiebreakers. The problem in college sports is that even when we know the system is flawed, nothing gets fixed until the flaw plays out publicly, and oftentimes embarrassingly. It is not logical, but that is how it works in the sport. So I expect next year to be more buttoned up. Hopefully they find a chairperson who is more comfortable speaking on camera, but let's be honest, there's absolutely going to be something that everyone complains about this time next year. All right, that covers the internal side of things, but now we need to talk about the external battles that Notre Dame is fighting, starting with the ACC, some leaked emails, and what a future scheduling shakeup could look like. That's coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugiet Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with a board-certified doctor online, and everything ships discreetly to your door. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Their live spreads and money lines adjust instantly instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Remember when Michigan took that early lead against Ohio State on Saturday and then the Buckeyes just rolled the rest of the way? Well, when Michigan took that lead, that would have been a perfect time to jump in and live bet on the Buckeyes. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Welcome back to the Friday Mailbag here on Locked On Irish. I'm your host, Tyler Wojak. Thanks again for making this your first watch or listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right, let's get back to the questions, and this next one comes from @DaveIrish66. Is there truth to the leaked emails the ACC sent directly to Notre Dame were also sent to the College Football Playoff Committee? If you missed it, the ACC staff sent a conference-wide email to every member school with coordinated talking points for their social media push against Notre Dame. That email, whether by mistake or not, was also sent to Notre Dame. So Notre Dame's frustration with the ACC was not just about a few blind resume tweets that everyone saw. It was a choreographed, targeted effort by the conference to undermine Notre Dame's playoff case. I'm a little bit surprised the full email has not been leaked yet. It has been reported from a few people. Matt Fortuna from the Inside Zone reported on it. I've heard about it. Others have heard about it as well. So it kind of paints a better picture as to why Notre Dame is so frustrated with the ACC and explains why Pete Bavacqua said the conference did permanent damage to their relationship. It wasn't just because of a few blind resume tweets. It's because the entire conference was working together and not just communicating with Miami, they were communicating with every school to undermine Notre Dame. A lot of people who have been critical of Notre Dame this week might view things differently, I would say, if they actually saw this email or knew about it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the outcome, right? I do not believe that email was sent directly to the CFP committee, but every school is allowed to present its case to the committee each week. Every school in contention, that is, right? That's actually something I learned this year. So Notre Dame gave a presentation to the committee. Pete Bavacqua talked about that. I believe it was Ron Paulus who presented on Notre Dame's behalf, and it sounded like they did really well. But Miami definitely gave a presentation. I would bet Virginia gave a presentation to ACC schools, and I am absolutely certain that Miami used the talking points that were discussed in that email in their presentation. Now, was that the reason that Notre Dame missed the playoff? No. Notre Dame needed about 15 different results to break their way or to not break their way over several weeks, and every single one went against them. It all started with Oklahoma upsetting Alabama in Tuscaloosa on November 15th. If that game goes the other way, Notre Dame is in, because Alabama would have been out of the playoff. Oklahoma would have been out of the playoff with a third loss, and that was like the flukiest game of all time. Oklahoma had barely over 200 yards of total offense, but Alabama had like 4 turnovers, and somehow they lost that game. And then there were multiple opportunities after that, like Oklahoma possibly losing to LSU, where one result could have helped Notre Dame, and yet none of them happened. We talked about that a lot during rivalry weekend, and it ultimately came down to conference championship weekend. Notre Dame needed Texas Tech to beat BYU, so BYU would not earn the automatic bid, and that part actually went right. They also needed Georgia to beat Alabama badly enough to push Alabama down to 10 and potentially create some space between Notre Dame and Miami, and Georgia delivered. So this past Saturday was going really well. But then Virginia lost to Duke in the ACC championship, which meant the ACC had no automatic bid to get a team into the college football playoff. And there was no way the CFP was ever going to leave a power conference with 17 schools out of the playoff entirely. Notre Dame is a massive brand, there's no doubt about it, but the committee was not going to risk keeping out the entire ACC to benefit one independent school. So the committee held Alabama at 9 despite the blowout and flipped Miami ahead of Notre Dame at the last moment, allowing them to use head-to-head as the justification that they had avoided for an entire month. Looking back, I'll admit it was naive of me to think the committee would drop the SEC runner-up out of a 12-team playoff. That would have created 9 months of backlash from Greg Sankey, who is literally the most powerful figure in the sport. He is the commissioner of the SEC. So that is the real reason that Notre Dame missed out. And I had some other people ask, like, why aren't more people talking about Alabama not dropping down further in the rankings? Like, I'm just telling you, that is the reason why it happened, or I guess it didn't happen in the case of Alabama. Is that the best way to run the system? No. Is it fair? Probably not. But This is the framework they built, and that includes Jack Swarbrick, the former Notre Dame athletic director, Greg Sankey, and plenty of others. And sometimes the school is going to get squeezed. And this year, it was Notre Dame. All right, our next question comes from @LittleLawyer from Texas. I heard you and Pete Sampson discussing a future scheduling agreement with the SEC if we left the ACC. How about a rotating Notre Dame Big 12 challenge against that coward Brett Yormark, who is the commissioner of the Big 12? Notre Dame would rotate against Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, Houston, play one at home and one away each year. So every 4 years, each plays at Notre Dame once. It could be good for Notre Dame's recruiting in Texas, and we get to shut that loser Brett up with a 2-0 Big 12 record every year. Anyways, go Irish and Giga Mags for the next 2 months. I do understand the Giga Mags sentiment because if you think about all the different teams who could win a national championship, I think I would be the least upset if A&M won, probably. I don't know. It's not really fun to think about. But anyway, back to the question. As much as I would love to see Notre Dame stick it to Brett Yormark and the Big 12 after everything that Yormark has been saying about Notre Dame and their team and now their athletic director, I just don't have any interest in watching Notre Dame play Baylor or Houston or TCU on a regular basis. Texas Tech would be a fun matchup. Given where that program is at these days, that'd be a lot of fun. Those two fan bases were talking a lot of trash on social media throughout the fall. Like I've said before, I think it'd be really cool to go to a game in Lubbock. Notre Dame and Texas Tech have never played each other before, but the other schools just do not move the needle for me whatsoever. I've been to Baylor. I've been to Waco, Texas. It's a weird place. It's not for me. If you're watching or listening to this and you're from Baylor, happy for you because it seems like everyone who lives there loves it there. It's just not for me. I don't plan on returning. TCU is fine. Never been to Fort Worth. Don't know if I plan on it. Houston is irrelevant outside of the fact they did sign a 5-star quarterback this year. And I've been to Houston before. Not super pumped about returning anytime soon. So I just don't really think any of these options are that great, and I don't believe that it's going to drastically help Notre Dame in recruiting either. Now, if Notre Dame really wanted to tap into the Texas market, they would have more success doing it by playing the Longhorns and playing on the biggest stage in Texas, or even SMU, because SMU is in Dallas, and there is a ton of great high school football in the Dallas area. And I mean, there's great high school football throughout the state of Texas, but just so many people in Dallas, which means you could really tap into that market. But would I like to get back at Brett Yormark? Absolutely. I think that time will come, maybe even next year, but it's not going to require a big change to Notre Dame's schedule in order for that to happen. All right, at Kenneth Herney 1791, if you could choose the next conference Notre Dame partners with, what would it be and why? I don't know if it's realistic, but I would love to see Notre Dame move its Olympic sports back to the Big East and then establish a football-only partnership with the Big Ten or the SEC. I doubt the Big Ten would go for it. Notre Dame and the Big Ten have never had a strong relationship, and the idea that the league would do the Irish any favors feels highly unlikely. My guess is that if Notre Dame pursued them with an offer to create a football partnership, the Big Ten would say it's all or nothing. But if it somehow worked, Notre Dame would be able to keep the USC rivalry. They'd be able to play Michigan again. They'd play Ohio State more frequently and bring back traditional opponents like Purdue and Michigan State. Like, that setup makes the most sense for Notre Dame. But again, I'm not sure it makes sense for the Big Ten. And my guess is they would not want it. So maybe the partnership ends up being with the SEC. And look, my feelings about the SEC are well documented. I don't like the conference because I don't like the fans of the conference. Are they the best conference in college football? Yes. Even though the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships, I still think top to bottom, the SEC is the deepest, even if they don't have like the Alabama team during their peak when they just had the best team and the deepest conference. The SEC hasn't had that. I don't think any of the teams this year at the top, other than Georgia, who could definitely win it all, they aren't the traditional powerhouses, but top to bottom, they're still the best. Have they been the best conference for the past 20 years? Also, yes. And I have no problem saying that. And honestly, the fact that I admit that drives my dad crazy. We argue about it all the time, which usually makes me sound like an SEC homer, even though that is not the case. I just can't stand the fans who walk around with this like inflated sense of superiority because their conference is good. I dealt with that constantly when I lived in Kentucky. So many of my friends were Wildcat fans, and they would say things like, well, if Kentucky were in the ACC, they'd be 10-2. No, you are a 7-5 program at best in every conference. But you know what would be great, though? If Notre Dame played the SEC 5 times a year. Like imagine going to Knoxville, Tennessee for a road game, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Norman, Oklahoma, instead of Raleigh, North Carolina, or Syracuse, New York, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. No shame to those three cities, but shame on the football programs who reside there. The schedule would be tougher, yeah, and the games would be, a lot more difficult, but it would be so much more fun to watch Notre Dame take on those teams and then have fan bases like Tennessee fans or Georgia fans come back to town. It would be so much more entertaining for everyone involved, not just Notre Dame fans, but the entire college football world. And Notre Dame would not be stuck with the kind of slate that they had this past year and next year. Like the 2026 schedule is awful. And at this point, I think a football partnership with the SEC is more realistic than anything else. I'm not saying it's likely, and it still kind of sounds insane, but it's probably true because Greg Sankey and Pete Bavacqua are allies, or at least, as close as you can be with Greg Sankey. And I think the ideal scenario would be sending the Olympic sports back to the Big East, because I don't see any world where Notre Dame's Olympic sports are playing in the SEC. And then you could build a football schedule that features several SEC matchups every year. Would it be 5? I don't know. I'd be content with 4 or even 3. And for the people, which I'm sure there are a lot of you listening to this or watching this, who hate the USC and they say you don't want that, well, let me just ask you this. How much more satisfying is it to watch Notre Dame beat an SEC team compared to beating a lifeless ACC team for the 100th time? I think you know the answer. All right, we have taken care of the big picture drama. Now let's land the plane with what everyone wants to talk about this time of year: transfer portal targets, quarterback plans, and lastly, a eulogy for the Eli Raridon anytime touchdown bet. It's going to be tough, but stay with us. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Irish with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonirish.supercast.com. That's lockedonirish.supercast.com, or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Today's episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You could preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You could send this to your grandparents, parents, newlyweds, or anyone else who loves photos. You can upload endless pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app. And you can add a personalized message right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's opened. Packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed, which is a huge win. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off, or as best-selling Carver matte frames named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Friday mailbag here on Locked On Irish. We've got 3 more questions left, and this next one comes from Jeff Melsheimer. Who will be some surprise departures, whether it be in the transfer portal or to the NFL? I don't know about surprises, so I'll just go through who I expect to leave by position. At quarterback, Kenny Minchey is already in the transfer portal. I don't expect any movement beyond that. At running back, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are headed to the NFL. I'm sure their announcements are going to be coming soon. And I would also expect Jabron Payne to enter the transfer portal. I really hope that they can convince Aeneas Williams to stay. That might surprise some people, but I can tell you that at one point this season, Aeneas Williams was definitely going in the transfer portal after the season because he was frustrated with his role. Totally get it. He was a part of the offense last year as a true freshman. Then as a sophomore with a new running backs coach, he just wasn't rotated in, but he finished the season strong. I think it ended on a high note for him. So now Notre Dame does have a chance to retain him, but I'm not 100% sure what he's going to decide to do. At wide receiver, Malachi Fields and Will Pauling are out of eligibility, and I expect Jaden Greathouse to transfer. The Greathouse saga has been one of the weirdest things about this season. You know, he comes out there, he plays the first 4 games, has extremely high expectations going into the season, is one of the highest paid players on the entire team, coming off his back-to-back great games to end last year in the college football playoff, and then To start the year, he's just not seeing that many targets. Will Pauling is playing over him. And then he has this injury after his fourth game. And then immediately there's all kinds of rumors like, is he going to transfer? Is he going to redshirt? We didn't know, but then he was on the sideline for every game the rest of the season. Ultimately, Marcus Freeman said that they decided to redshirt him at the end. And now going forward, it's still possible for him to come back, but my hunch is at this moment, just based on how weird that situation was and everything that transpired, I'm guessing he's going to head to the transfer portal and have 2 more years left of eligibility. KK Smith could also enter the transfer portal depending on how aggressive Notre Dame is in the transfer portal at wide receiver. And at this point, I'd expect them to be very aggressive to replace Fields and replace Pauling and potentially Greathouse as well. I think they're going to have plenty of suitors too, because who wouldn't want to catch passes from CJ Carr? So if they get 3 studs, I don't know if KK Smith is going to be on the team next year, but I don't know. It's too early to say about him. Tight end, not expecting any movement there. Eli Raridon is off to the NFL. He's out of eligibility. And then on the offensive line, 2 big question marks here. Right now, it sounds like Emil Wagner is leaning towards going to the pros, but if Emil Wagner decided to transfer, he could get a major contract because every team out there is desperate for quality tackles, and Emil Wagner is certainly a quality tackle. The question would be, would Notre Dame be willing to pay him what Wagner could make on the open market, because they also have to pay other offensive linemen and other players, and they aren't desperate at tackle. Notre Dame, in my opinion, would be willing to pay Billy Schrauth to come back, and I think Billy Schrauth is going through a similar decision about his future. It sounds like he's 50-50 as well. I think for Schrauth, it's not a matter of would he transfer or would he go to the NFL. It's just, is he going to stay at Notre Dame or is he going to go to the NFL? This is a guy who has dealt with serious injuries in back-to-back seasons, so maybe on one hand he's thinking, well, I just need to get in the NFL now because he can't come back and risk another injury in college. Or he could think, if he comes back, plays 1 more year healthy, he could really up his stock in the NFL draft. I think both arguments are valid, but Notre Dame really needs to get Billy Schrauth back on the team next year. His last game in a Notre Dame uniform this season was against USC, and despite the fact that he was playing seriously hurt, he had one of the best games that any offensive lineman has had at Notre Dame in recent years. Beyond that, might see some guys at the bottom of the depth chart move on, but that's normal attrition there. And then on defense, D-line, Boubacar Traore has a big decision to make, and that's going to greatly impact Notre Dame's season next year. Right now, I think he stays. Haven't heard anything credible about that. I just have a feeling that Notre Dame is going to be willing to pay him a ton, and he would be one of the best players on the entire team next season. Jordan Botelho and Junior Tuialamaka are out of eligibility, so they're gone. Josh Burnham has another year. I expect him to be back. And then Jared Dawson, Gabriel Rubio, and Jason Onye are all out of eligibility as well, although maybe Onye could get another year depending on, because of everything that transpired, but I don't think he has another year. So I'd expect all 3 of those guys gone as well. Linebacker, I think Jalen Snead is ready to test out the NFL waters. And at one point I wondered if Jaden Osbury would consider looking elsewhere, but with Kingston Biliamu Asa out for probably, certainly the spring and the summer as he recovers from that torn ACL injury he suffered against Syracuse, it's probably going to be Osbury and Bowen as the starting linebackers to start 2026 until KVA is back to full health. So I fully expect him to stick around at this point. You could maybe see some guys like Bodie Cajon or Preston Zinter consider leaving just because they haven't been able to get on the field yet. And then you got Madden Framo coming on. So it's just going to be hard for those guys to start at Notre Dame anytime soon. At defensive back, Devontae Smith is out of eligibility. But other than that, they could bring back everyone else other than Jalen Stroman. What's Adon Schuler going to do? That one I'm less sure about. I think that could go 50-50, but Notre Dame is going to be willing to pay and keep him. He really came on after a slow start to the year, is a team captain, so they'd love to have him. And just think about how good that secondary could be with Schuler and Tay Johnson at the back end, and then young guys like Jadon Blair, and then Joey O'Brien as a true freshman, and Luke Talich, who played really well this season, and then at corner, Leonard Moore. I would say keep an eye out for Christian Gray. I have no sourcing on this. This is just pure speculation. If there was a big surprise player who would leave the transfer portal, I could see Christian Gray leaving. Again, just speculating here. I think it would have to do with the fact that Notre Dame has a ton of young, talented quarterbacks, including a couple true freshmen. Like I said, Kari Adams might be able to play right away at Notre Dame. So it would not shock me if Christian Gray ended up leaving to some other school in the transfer portal. But that is just one I'm keeping an eye on. Again, have not heard anything, totally speculating there, just something to monitor going forward. And then at kicker, Noah Burnett's career is over. I wouldn't be surprised if they tell Eric Schmidt to look elsewhere because of how bad this season went for him, and they're definitely going to look in the transfer portal for another kicker. So those are the guys who I expect to leave, or, am monitoring, I guess is a better way to phrase it. Next up, we got a question from ND today. Do you think Notre Dame will look to add a backup quarterback in the transfer portal this offseason? I think they have to, because Kenny Minchey is gone, and you cannot be one play away from Blake Hebert or a true freshman as your starting quarterback during the most pivotal season for Notre Dame in decades. Like, make no mistake about it. Next year, 2026, it is national championship or bust with all the talent they have coming back. Presumably, Marcus Freeman still is the head coach. A very easy schedule, and everything that happened this past year, they are going all in on 2026. And they've been preparing for 2026 for a long time. Like, they had a great chance to do something big this year, but I think, privately, behind the scenes, staff members have been saying this is the year. So you have your starting quarterback, and CJ Carr could be one of, if not the best quarterbacks in all of college football next season, but you need some depth behind him, and Notre Dame has a bunch of young guys that have zero experience on Saturdays in the fall. So I think they're going to look for one. It's going to be difficult to find someone who is willing to transfer over to Notre Dame just to back up someone who's already played elsewhere. So you're going to have to look at group of 6 schools, maybe even the FCS, find a quarterback who is proven, who's experienced, who maybe wants to get in the coaching ranks or just wants to get their master's degree at Notre Dame and be a part of the program. If they can find someone like that, that would be huge. And I think it would make a lot of people feel a little bit easier about the backup option if CJ Carr ever deals with an injury next season. Okay, Dan Benson, will Eli Raridan be the highest drafted skill position player to not score a touchdown in his final college season, injuries notwithstanding? I looked this up. This was impossible to figure out for sure. So unfortunately, Dan, I do not have the answer for you. But for the sake of this discussion, let's just say yes. And I just wanted to shout out all of you who rode the Eli Raridan anytime touchdown bet all season long. I wish I could say it was a fun ride, but it wasn't really. We all just lost money on the whole deal. But, it really was a good time. And the fact that we aren't going to get the moment that we'd all sort of fantasized about where Eli Raridan would score a key touchdown in the playoffs, and it would be like the highlight of the year, certainly on this show. And it always cracked me up, too, how many tweets or DMs I would get after every time Eli Raridan went down inside the 5-yard line or dropped the ball in the end zone. And as we know, it happened a lot. But those are the things that make the season so fun and why I love doing the show. Like, the community we have built is awesome. And even though the season is over, we're going to do all kinds of stuff here on the show in the offseason. So I hope you'll stick around because we're going to be talking Notre Dame football all year long. All right, that's going to do it for today's mailbag. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first watch or listen of the day and for tuning in all week long. Seriously, I really, really appreciate it. Like I said at the top, I know it's been a rough week for Irish fans, and I'm not sure it's going to get that much better anytime soon because it's the offseason, and there's going to be the coaching carousel, portal moves, all of that, and the snub is going to sting for a while. But I'm very, very grateful for everyone who continues to tune into the show as we march forward to 2026. And if you have not already, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your preferred podcast platform. And if you like the show today, hit the like button on YouTube or rate and review the podcast. It helps more Notre Dame fans find the show, and the community keeps growing. And before you head out, did Locked On Irish make your Spotify Wrapped? Because if it did, prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. We'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. I'm going to try to take a long weekend because this season has been an absolute grind. So the plan is for me to be back on Tuesday morning of next week. No show planned for Monday, but because I said that, there's going to be a bunch of news that breaks this weekend, in which case I'll find a way to drop an episode on Monday. But either way, have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you next week.